Hi, welcome to Today in Tokyo. This is Carl, your personal English teacher online or in person in Tokyo. Go to aaclass.jp. I want to talk about a few issues that I've talked about casually over the years in a series of short videos like this to challenge people to think about things that really are embarrassing. The first one is the issue of LGBT people and homosexuality. LGBT and homosexuality are not embarrassing. The way conservatives and religious people look at those people and those issues, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing as a species or for a species. Now, I'm not going to say we're the smartest species on Earth because we're the dumbest. Wisdom-wise, we're the dumbest because we're absolutely destroying the biosphere which gave birth to us. That's unequivocal. I won't field any questions about that. I won't listen to any criticism about that point. We are destroying that which we came from. That makes us the dumbest species on the planet. Now you could say, oh, but look at our industry. Our industry is species specific. I'm sure you wouldn't argue with me if I said to you there are no whales or dolphins or fish who need submarines or oxygen apparatus. There are no birds who need airplanes. And there are no land-dwelling animals other than ourselves who require shelters, more than is afforded by simple finding or construction from the natural world, right? Monkeys don't need cities. They don't need refrigeration, right? So all of the things that we have made per our intelligence and industry, we desire or require. Those things don't make us smarter than other creatures. You know, as you two said, a fish needing a bicycle. A fish doesn't need a bicycle, right? They don't need the things that we think make us look smart. We need those things. So we have the skills necessary to make the world survivable for us, just as other creatures have the skills that they need to make the world survivable for them, right? So, yes, we're highly adaptable, abstract, intelligent, and industrious, but it's all according to what we need. The other creatures don't need what we have, and we're destroying their world. That makes us really dumb. Now, another thing which makes us really dumb is the concepts that we allow in our society and in our minds stemming from religion. And I'm only going to go after one today, as I mentioned earlier, right? Religious people think, and I've had them say to me time and again, that homosexuality and other natural persuasions, as I call them, are evil, sinful. They are the result of a sinful world. In other words, people who engage in homosexuality are going against the God of religious people. It doesn't seem to impress them when I explain to them time and again that homosexuality is seen across other species in the animal kingdom. Are those species sinful? Are they avoiding what they learned in the Bible? And probably the arguments I would hear against what I just said are, no, we give the other species a pass. Not because they can't read, but because they wouldn't and they don't have to, and because their God, the God of the religious people, gives the other species a pass. Why would it be, then, if these same people think that we're so intelligent, that we need a guidebook to know what to do? It doesn't make any sense. The monkeys are free. The tigers are free. The giraffe are free. Sharks are free. Every other creature can do as it pleases. But we have to worry about what an invisible individual wants us to do. That doesn't make any sense. Physically or morally, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense because when you look at the course of human activity, you've never seen a god come down and stop anybody or lecture anybody. Oh, it's in your books, but I could write anything. And in the course of 1,000 years and multitudes of different languages misinterpreting and eons of confusion interfering, people could end up thinking that what I wrote was something divine. That doesn't make it divine. We all know that religion in ancient times was government. There was no separation between religion and government. There were no separate concepts. They were one thing. The religion was the morality used to justify or to enforce the rules of government. And that's all it was, aside from primitive explanations for what's happening in the universe that we didn't understand and were afraid of. Religion and government were the same thing. They weren't merged, they were the same thing. Since the Enlightenment and since the advent of empiricism, thanks to what happened in France and England, thanks to people like Voltaire, Montesquieu, Bacon, we now know that we can separate the imaginings of the early thinkers of our species and government, and indeed the smartest governments separate church and state. And in our country, we're having so much trouble because since about 1940, 1945, maybe 1950, we've been merging the two again. And secular people in the United States have been fighting against it, but basically it's very hard to beat the tide back of the rabid hordes of Christians who insist on pushing religion back into our government, and that's what's causing most of our problems. So, here's what I have to say in conclusion to you religious people who think that homosexuality, LGBT persuasions are decision. I don't decide to be straight. And I couldn't decide to experiment with homosexuality if I wanted to. Okay? My experience as a human being is probably a cookie-cutter version of everyone else's. We can't engage in things that we don't want to engage in. I'm not talking about getting a job to take care of your mother. I'm talking about doing things that are outside the realm of our desire or inclination. We can't do that. Now you may say, oh, there are some people who can do what they don't want to do. Soldiers, prostitutes. First of all, to a certain degree that may be true. There may be some kind of special flexibility in some human beings that allows them to do things they're completely averse to do for the money, for the honor, for the reputation, for their ego, or for survival, okay? But most of us, we wouldn't adopt a whole lifestyle just because it's interesting. Experimenting with things lasts a very short time. Shortly thereafter, we go back to what we're comfortable with and what our inclinations are. Gay people are not being gay to upset the church. They're not being gay because they think it's interesting. Their natural inclination to be gay comes from their biology. It comes from their makeup. It comes from their consciousness. That's why they engage in this, even though you have been torturing them for centuries. People don't choose to live difficult lives. They live the lives that are natural to them. Haven't you ever thought of this? Even if it were true of a small percentage of the population, some people wanting to be gay because it would annoy conservatives. Forget that they couldn't do that for very long and be happy or mentally sane. The majority of them are not doing it for that reason. It's common sense. You couldn't do it, neither can they. And they don't. Dolphins and certain primates are homosexual because it's in their makeup, it's in their consciousness, it's in their chemistry, and it's the same with humans because we're animals too. And for you to try to legislate against it, for you to try to use therapy to get them to change what they are, is insane. It's not just stupid, it's insane. Nobody would try to change the consciousness of a dog so that it could be a cat. And the people who feel that they're in the wrong body feel this way so strongly because it's natural to them. As much as I feel like a man, the person who has a sex change felt like the opposite sex to the same degree. It's not to upset you or the church. That's a narcissistic point of view. That's something requiring psychological analysis. They're doing this because they want to upset me. No, whole swaths of the human population don't make their lives difficult because you're making their lives difficult out of choice. It's because that's whom they are. And the essence of love and compassion, in my view, the essence of higher intelligence, in order to have that love and compassion, is to leave these people alone and to love and respect them as fellow human beings. Because it doesn't make any sense to think that they have to change the way they naturally are for the God of your religion. That's cruel. And it doesn't make any sense at all. And finally, I'd like to ask you, what kind of God would it be that would allow for error, if it is indeed an error according to you, such as homosexuality, and then make that a crime? That doesn't make any sense unless that God of yours is more like a sentient being with ego and avarice and snark and cruelty. And for you to accept this, for you not to have come to the juncture that I came to in my life and billions of other atheists have come to in their lives, when they grew up and they said, this makes no sense, not only is it immoral for me to continue to believe this because I'm going to pass it on to other people who might accept it in their vulnerability, it's stupid. It's stupid. There's no cruelty like this in the rest of the animal kingdom. Why do you tolerate it? Why do you further it in ours? Well, that's fodder for another discussion, but it has to do with the unresolved issues in your lives. Think about these things. This was all expressed in love for you and for humanity, not to make anybody angry, not because I love argumentation, but because it's painfully stressful to live in a world with people like you who are causing pain and suffering for the rest of my brothers and sisters on the earth in the life that I cherish, and they would like to, too. Peace, love, joy, imagination, and enlightenment to you. Have a nice day.